You're about to listen to our interview with Joshua Williamson. We talk a lot of Flash, a lot of the future of comics, Batman, Superman, Josh's writing habits, and so much more. Can't wait for you to listen.
So yeah, if you guys want to skip ahead to any sort of conversations we have with Williamson, please look at the timestamps below. Thanks for listening.
Hello there, I'm Flash, but you could call me JD.
And ahoy, and Comic Book Hunter, also known as just Hunter.
And this is a hero story, episode number 100, a very special episode because we're with a very special guest returning to the podcast, Flash writer, Batman, Superman writer, you know him, you love him, Joshua Williamson. Josh, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me back, guys. Looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, and we've been looking forward to talking to you, and I just want to thank you again for coming on such short notice, actually. The way we posted it seems like it's been planned for so long, but actually just a few days ago I messaged Josh like in a panic, like, oh my god, our 100th episode's coming up and we have nothing planned and we've been promising something special. Is there any way you could do it? And Josh, being the great guy he is like, yeah, sure. So here we are now recording, and it was really a pleasure to have you back on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it was funny when you messaged me. As I told you then, I was like, I had planned on reaching out to you after the last issue. I'm going to call it 101 because I always forget the legacy numbers. So
yeah, that's fair.
I'm just going to call these things. I'll have to think about it. I have on my wall. I can look up and stuff. But to me, they're always going to be the original numbers. But yeah, after the last issue of my run, after 101 comes out, I was going to message you and see if you wanted to chat and stuff. But we'll probably still do that. But yeah, we can totally talk now.
Well, I was going to save that for the end of the episode, but you are obviously welcome back whenever, and
of course,
we're very happy to have you on with whatever you're writing next. But yeah, so we're talking about the end of your Flash run, just your Flash run in general. I mean, wow, we were talking about this earlier, and I made a post about this maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was shocked. Somebody said to me, Williamson has the longest Flash run of all time by issue. And I was like, no way. So then I did the math. I went from 1987. I did modern. I went from 1987 on, and I counted, and I was like, holy crap, he has the most issues.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought no way. And then when I did the chart, I was like, oh my God, he's on top. That's crazy.
Yeah, I have the most consecutive, for sure. Carrie Bates clearly has the most, like, by far. Yeah. And also in terms of years, like, if you think of the Flash pre-crisis, I mean, there's so much of that is Carrie Bates. Jeff has, I think it's like 62 issues. Well, Jeff's interesting because if you think about, and this is the same with Mark, if you start putting all the other issues onto it, of like Jeff, when he did his initial run, and then he came back and did like a mini series, he did the Blackest Night, like 3-parter and stuff like that. And you get to like Flash Rebirth, and then you get to like, I always call it Brightest Day Flash, but it's like 2010 Flash.
It's Brightest Day Flash,
right? It's Brightest Day Flash, yeah. So you get to that, you start like put all stuff together, and then if you even count something like Flashpoint on there, like he's close to 100 or like right on 100.
Well, so I did the math and I made a chart on my Instagram, and I counted everyone's from 1987 on. I counted all the special issues, all the Flashpoint, Brightest Day, Blackest Night. And you had 104, actually 105, because I missed Flash Annual 3. I didn't even realize it was coming out until I saw it in the shop. So you had 105, Wade had 98, and Jeff had 89, which I was like, wow, that blew my mind.
Yeah, well, part of it is I had the double ship too, though. I think the double ship.
Well, and that's what threw me off, because you've only been on the book for 4 years. Guys like Wade and Jeff, they were on it for what felt like so long. So I was like, there's no way. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like Flash history, we got to read it issue by issue.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy how those guys, like Mark Waid particularly, it does feel like he was on the book longer than that. But I guess because there's a year gap with Grant and Mark Millar, and then he would occasionally have like one off here and there. But I feel like Mark was on there like all of the 90s.
Oh, and that's what it feels like.
Yeah, and this is nothing to anybody else, but it's like I feel like the 90s is Mark, the 2000s is Jeff. And then you get to like New 52 and all that stuff, and then you get to me in the 4 years that I was on it. But it's bonkers when you think about some of this stuff. I think they've been on longer. But what I was saying to you before we started recording was I gave issue 96, which is 96 is issue 757.
Oh, that came out on Wednesday.
That's what this week, right? And then so 759. So 759 was the one that I gave to James Tynan today to read, and he read it, and he was like, he said that when he got to the ending, he smiled, and he was like, yeah, people are going to be cheering with this one. I think when they get to that's the part one of Finish Line. Because the way it is we have two parts. The two parts first, 96 and 97 are Legion of Zoom, and then 98 through 101 is Finish Line. But then you also have Speed Metal, and Speed Metal comes out the same day as Flash 101 or 762. They come out on the exact same day, and you have to read 762, the Flash 101, before you read Speed Metal, because they immediately go into each other.
That's good to know, because I would probably read Speed Metal first because I'd be too excited.
No, you got to read them the other way around. I mean, it wouldn't ruin anything for you necessarily, but I do feel like,
story
it'll story will flow better. And I think thematically, in terms of me saying, like, so this is me saying what I got to say about Barry with this. Like, this is me wrapping up all the things I want to say and do about Barry. And then Speed Metal is me being like, okay, this is me wrapping up the stuff I wanted to say with Wally and the stuff that's going on with him. So, and not to say the stories are necessarily over, but it's the idea that I'm able to kind of like have my say on the same day, which is crazy. I can't believe they're both coming on the same day. Once I figured that out, I was like, oh, okay, this is so perfect. Because I was worried Speed Metal would come out before. And then when I realized they were coming the same day, I was like, oh, this is just, it just works out really, really well.
Yeah.
For the story, But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff coming up in the book. I mean, I'm done with it. Like, I finished writing it a little bit ago, and Howard's finishing the last issue right now. And
oh, nice.
I think you guys are gonna be like super surprised. Like, if you're, I don't know, there's a part of me that is like, if you've never read Flash before and you read these issues, you're going to be so lost and you're not going to know what's going on.
Oh, well, we're Flash fans.
Yeah, guys, like, that's the thing. Like, you guys, I think you're going to get in there and there's going to be so many Easter eggs and so many things and so much stuff that you're just going to be like, it's going to blow your mind at places. You're going to be like, what? Like, where did that come from? Like,
You've given me content for weeks, I guess, after the issue comes out. I'm gonna have to pick apart the issues and post everything that I find.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there, and there's all kind. I mean, I love Easter eggs, and I love like foreshadowing of things. And if you go back and you read, if you go all the way back to Flash. Okay, this is out now. Okay, so if you go all the way back to Flash Rebirth, the one that I did, the part 1. There's the murder in the issue, and then the last page has Thawne like watching, right? Like, he's watching those 2 cops. And I picked that up in the issue that came out this week. And so it's like, I've always been seeding this stuff this entire time. And you go back and read like Flash number 9. In Flash number 9, we did the same thing where it was like, we did this tease of all these things that were going to happen throughout the 100 issues. And so if you go back and look, you're going to be able to be like, oh, that was about this, and that was about this, and that was about this. And so, yeah, we just really, I think it'd be one of those things that, like, someday I'll probably make a chart and be like, all right, this was teasing this was teasing this. And,
yeah.
I think that's probably literally the only thing that'll make me re-download Twitter is to see that chart, because I know Twitter's like your main output there. I actually, just a quick side question there. There's an Instagram account called Joshua Williamson, and it posted like some of the David Marquez art. Is that you?
I don't think so. There's me, so I have Twitter. You're talking about Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram.
Yes, the Instagram is me. I never use Instagram.
So I messaged the account because it was like a 2011 post. Yeah, so it was like post from like 2011, right? And then it was all of a sudden like, 9 years later, you're posting David Marquez art, and you're like, hey, I never use Instagram, but whatever, I'll post art from here time to time. And I was like, I found it one day and I was like, okay, Mitch Jareds follows it. I think Snyder follows it. So I'm like, okay, this seems legit, but let me message it to make sure. And I'm like, I have no idea if this is him.
I have no idea. I don't even know. Like, this can sound crazy. I think with technology, I'm usually pretty on it. Instagram, for whatever reason, is like the one thing I'm like a Luddite about. So don't use it. I don't really use it that often, but I will. So it's on my phone. I don't have it anywhere else. I also don't. This sounds so silly. This is how much I don't use it. So, like, people I know uses it. My wife uses it a lot. And there was a while there I was like, how do I even post on this thing? Like, I didn't even... And also, I'm very critical about what I do post on the internet. Like, if you notice, like, I don't really use Twitter very often.
Your Twitter's very professional.
Yeah, it's all just, like, stuff up. And so, a lot of that stuff's scheduled. Like, a lot of my posts on Twitter are scheduled. And so, it's like, I'm very... meticulous of like, this is what it's going to be, and this is what I'm going to post and when I'm going to post it. Instagram is so weird because I don't use it on my computer, like I don't have Twitter on my phone or anything. So when you said that just now, I was like, what's he talking about? I'm like, oh, he's on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah.
was like, oh my god. Yeah, I about 2 months ago, I was like, you know what? I should probably use this. But then I was like, I don't know what to use this for. That's how it's different from Twitter. Aside from the fact that I know people will use it. So, yeah, but it's on my to-do list to try to use it more often.
Listen, Christian Deuce, one of your artists on Flash Rebirth, I followed him since very early on in his account, and I messaged him all the time. He's a very nice guy. I've kind of like taught him like how to use Instagram through messages. I'm like trying to give him advice and stuff, and he's always thanking me. So I'm like, okay, I helped him use Instagram. I guess I'm gonna have to help you too. Just get you through it.
That's great. Christian's awesome. I really like him a lot. He I don't remember where we saw him at first, but I liked him on something, and then we needed somebody to do a filler issue. And I was like, let's just use Christian. I think his stuff is good. I think he has a lot of potential. And then he kind of became like the B artist in the book. Like if Rafa wasn't doing it, that meant Christian was doing it. And Howard only does the special event stuff, like he did the Button in a Flash War and Year One.
Yeah.
And he's doing the last 2 parts of Finish Line, which are bonkers. Again, like when you get to those,
I'm so excited.
You get to like the Rafa, because it's going to alternate, and this is something we haven't talked about yet, but it's going to alternate. So it's like Rafa, then Christian, Rafa, Christian, and then Howard for 2 parts. But also there are sequences that are being drawn by Scott Collins, but there's a specific reason he's drawing those sequences.
Blitz.
He's not drawing. What's that?
Is it like included the Blitz?
No. I mean,
okay.
You'll see when you get there. There's a reason that he's drawing those parts. But he's drawing very specific parts, and so and then you get to Howard, and it's bonkers. There's a page in it where because let's put it like this. In issue 100, which is 761, Howard was saying he counted, and there are more characters in that one issue than he's ever drawn in one issue ever.
Oh wow!
Like crap! I mean, he drew JLA. How's that possible?
Yeah, that's what I thought. But when you'll see, there's a lot of people in there. It gets bonkers. There's a lot in that one. So
I'm excited.
It's all one action sequence too, but it's a lot of stuff that happens, and then the last issue has action in it as well. There's a lot of big action, but then obviously I kind of slow things down in the last 8 pages to kind of wrap everything up. But yeah, there's a lot coming. I think it's tough because I don't want to spoil things for you guys. I'm also it's weird. I mean, I wrote it out of order in a way because I had to write it so that Howard, because we knew those 2 issues were going to have so much going on, he had to start drawing early, and so it's like I wrote them kind of out of order. And so sometimes I'm like, there are moments where I'm like, wait, what issue came out this week? What happened to that issue? Oh, okay, all right, yes.
All the way back.
Yeah. Well, that's that. I wrote some of that stuff a long time ago, but it's weird because I'm also putting this stuff out for so long.
Going off of that, you say how you kind of foreshadowed a lot even from the beginning. Did you always plan to have August killed by Eobard? Was that always your plan? Oh, yeah. Okay. Since
that's
first
why,
introducing.
Yeah, so that's why, when you go back and you look at issue 7 and 8, it's like 7, when he says at the end of 7, I'm going to go fight Eobard, that was me already knowing that eventually we were going to have this happen, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's weird because we had kind of, rearranged some of the stories. So some of the things that happened, some things got extended. Right, so this sequence with Godspeed and Eobard was supposed to happen much earlier.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that we're doing, it's really weird, man. It's things got stretched out in places and got rearranged in places. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yeah, Eobard was always going to kill Godspeed. And the whole thing
that blew my mind, by the way. That hit me like a Mack truck. I did this in a post, and I was like, it was genius writing because you lulled us into the false sense of security, right? Eobard's kind of has his "what would Barry do" moment, right? And he lets Paradox live, and it's wow, Eobard really did the right thing. He looked up to Barry for a good thing, and I'm like, wow, that was really nice. And then I turned the page, and I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah, it was planned. It was on purpose because I want people to have a moment where you thought Eobard might not be as bad, or just had a moment of maybe this could go a different direction. Mm-hmm. What's crazy is this actually. So I tried to keep that secret for as long as possible that Godspeed was going to die. And we knew, I mean, for a long time. I mean, it's funny. I have a whiteboard from the end of 2017. And on that whiteboard, it says, Eobard kills Godspeed back then. And because originally Godspeed and Wally were supposed to be in Running Scared.
Yep.
There's that part where Barry runs to the future at the beginning of 25, and the idea at the time was that Wally and Godspeed were going to come with him. And this is all like things that moved around. Obviously, it didn't work, but they were supposed to go to the future with him. That storyline, some of that stuff got used later because you have the stuff where it's like Wally comes to save Barry during Perfect Storm, and then Barry lets Godspeed out of Iron Heights to help in that storyline as well. Yeah. Some of that stuff was supposed to happen sooner. So some of that stuff was supposed to happen during Running Scared. So I had this whiteboard. I've always kind of wanted to show this whiteboard of planning, but the problem was, because it had stuff on there about Bart too, about Bart coming back at the end of 50. There's things on that whiteboard. But it has on that whiteboard Eobard killing Godspeed, and I was like, we're still going to do that, and I don't want to, like, spoil it. But what's bonkers is that the solicitation. So if you bought the physical DC Comics catalog at the comic book store, if you bought it, if you got to issue 95, which is issue 756, the one before last,
okay, so.
It says in big, bold letters, it says... Reverse Flash kills Godspeed.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Because no one reads the physical.
I was about to say, how did I not see an article about this?
No one reads it. You read it online.
Yep.
Right. So unless you're a retailer or a person like I, maybe who still gets those and is obsessed with them, you would not have known. But if you had bought the physical like DC Diamond catalog and flipped through all the way to that page. It says that Reverse Flash kills Godspeed. I was glad that it did not get leaked. I'm glad no one picked up on it because it allowed us to have that reveal, that twist, and that's not my favorite. That's not my favorite page turn. There's one coming up in 98. That's my favorite page turn.
Oh man, one more intense than that. I don't know if I can handle this.
One of my favorite. It's probably my favorite we've done in the book. It's the most like. It's really earned, but also feels very sudden, just like that one. But yeah, we planned that from the beginning. It was always intended. That's why he has that moment at the end of 7, at the beginning of 8, where he's like, I'm gonna go fight. He's like, I'm gonna go fight Eobard and see what happens. So that was always me kind of foreshadowing some of those beats.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Like we were talking about this maybe a few podcast episodes ago, like when the issue had come out, and we were like, that was genius. Like, Eobard creates a friend for Barry only to take it away. Like, he feels betrayed by Barry, right? He wants to be his best friend and all that, right? Every second is a gift, right? He sees Wally telling him that at the graduation. So, like, to create a best friend for him and then only to take it away, like, right when he thinks he's doing good. Like, I just thought that, like, it blew my mind. Like, just seeing that and not knowing ahead of time. Because, when you read old Flash trades, you already know, like, what happened. So, to not know was just crazy.
Thanks, man. And there's more coming. There's a scene in 100 where Thawne is taunting Barry, and he kind of hints at all the things. This is probably too much spoilers, but there's 2 scenes where he basically is like, "These are all the ways I've messed with you over the last 4 years," and he kind of like. We show it. We show little examples of all the ways that he's messed with Barry over the last 4 years. And I think some of those things will surprise people. But, he's been manipulating Barry since issue 1 in some form or another. And even, like, with the whole thing with Hunter, where it's like that he gave the gun to the clown, things like that we kind of revisit and we explain a little bit more of why he was doing the things he was doing and what he was putting in motion this entire time to kind of just, mess. Because the thing is that he doesn't want to just mess with Barry, because the thing he's sort of come to this conclusion of is that, like, it's not enough to make Barry suffer. It's that Barry's family must suffer as well, and he wants Barry to do that because Barry is so much about, like, what happened. I don't want what happened to me to happen to anybody else, and I want to make sure I protect my family. So it can't just be like, oh, I'm suffering. It has to be like, oh, I'm going to make the people around you pay as well. And that's sort of what Thawne has been up to the last 4 years plus. You'll see. I mean, once you get there, you're going to...
Yeah.
It's pretty spelt out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You mentioned the part where Hunter gave the clown the gun. Did you have to contact Jeff Johns about that at all? Or
not really. I mostly talked to Scott Collins about it because he was going to draw it.
Yeah, we actually talked to Scott on an interview, and he had mentioned that he said that you actually seemed a little like nervous to go over it with him, which I know I would be nervous too.
Yeah, I wanted to. Well, because he still talks to Jeff on a regular basis. I don't talk to Jeff that often anymore, and so it was like he still talks to Jeff on a regular basis. So I was like making sure my editors talked with Jeff, or they knew what was going on, and going to Scott and being like, "This is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think?" And he was like, "That sounds cool. That makes sense." And so we ran with it. I don't think it really does anything to hurt the character, but I definitely think it adds a little bit more to him in terms of tragedy. You know, it's like, because he was right. Like, that's the thing, is that, like, when you go back and you look at that story, I mean, I've read Blitz so many times. I've read Blitz probably more than any, other than Return of Barry Allen. Like, Return of Barry Allen, I know.
That's my 1-2 punch right there. I've probably read them each 500 times.
Yeah, like, they're both really great. And, you know, Blitz was one, man, like, you're talking about reading some stuff for the first time. You know, I remember reading Blitz when it was coming out, and just every issue just being like, oh my god. I mean, I felt stupid when it came to Hunter's Almond, because, like, I remember when he went evil, I did not see it coming. And I was talking to another guy at the comic shop I worked at, and he was like, what are you talking about? Look at his name. It's like Zolomon. I was like, I did not see that at all. Like, never once did that happen.
Well, and it's interesting that you talk about, like, you know, foreshadowing in a story, because coming up to Blitz and Jeff's run, he also foreshadowed. He had that one issue with Abracadabra that I think it was like DC First or something. It was some like tie-in issue, and like, you know, he had like things referring to Hunter's Almond, like what his fate would be. And like, obviously at the time when that came out, no one probably saw it coming, but like it all, like when you read Blitz now, you're like, oh my god, he was sprinkling the ideas. So I feel like we're gonna be able to do that with your run, like see where you were sprinkling the ideas for us.
I was always trying to lay little seeds down and just put like a trail there of like, this is going to eventually be a thing. Some of it's really vague, and some of it's just me having fun, but then there's some stuff that's very obvious. It's like, this is the direction it's going to go. But yeah, doing the Hunter stuff, I really like Hunter. He's like obviously one of my favorite villains, and I think we talked about this last time, possibly, that like I didn't want to use him if I didn't have Wally. Like, that was kind of my rule, was I didn't want to use Wally villains until I could, and then I was able to use Hunter in the story and, you know, build it up into stuff about Thawne and everything like that. But yeah, I will tell you, Hunter does not appear in the ending of my run, because I feel like I kind of wrapped up some stuff with him. But I do want to write him again someday. I think that, like, as much as he's not in the end of my run, I don't feel like Hunter's story is over. But also, eventually, you know, you gotta leave some things on the table for other people. Yeah, I feel like I've been greedy with certain things that I'm like, I've been very protective of certain stuff with the Flash. Like, I've been very, like, you know, like Gorilla Grodd did not appear in anything for a long time, and I was able to, and people wanted to use Gorilla Grodd, and I had to be like, no, you can't use Gorilla Grodd. Like, please don't use Gorilla Grodd. There's a whole reason. Don't use Gorilla Grodd. Don't use this person. Don't use that person. What was funny is he was going to appear in Deathstroke, and I was like, please don't use him in Deathstroke, because he was going to be on the Secret Society of Supervillains, and I was like, please use him in Deathstroke. Don't use him in Deathstroke. And they ended up using Reverse Flash instead, and I was like, oh god, like, he's dead. You're not supposed to use him. I mean, it's bonkers when you think about, like, he died in my run. Reverse Flash died in 27 and then came back in 92. Like, that's a lot of issues that he's not in the book, but his presence is in the book the entire time. There's like on with him, but that was on purpose too. I wanted to make sure we brought him back, that it was something, you know, really emotional and very it all kind of built up to him, and then obviously tell like a really big final story with him that ties it all back together.
Mm-hmm. So if another comic wants to use a Flash character, they have to go through you first, or whoever's writing the Flash at the time?
No, they go through the editorial, but if you have a good relationship with your editors, I mean, listen, editors will protect you with that, because they don't want it to be like that either. They don't want things to like mess with somebody else's story. I originally was going to use Abracadabra in the book much, much earlier. It's interesting. Abracadabra is a funny character because he's a Barry villain, but is so tied into Wally.
Yep.
Like, he's definitely... It's funny with Abracadabra because he's not really a character I think people think of as one of, like, the Flash's biggest villains. But in the Wally run, Abracadabra is a big part of that. Like,
Jeff utilized him to the max.
Well, so Mark did. I mean, Mark's the one that like took away the stuff with the wedding and all that stuff. That was Mark and everything. And I was gonna use him earlier on, and then they were like, "Hey, wait, he's gonna be in Titans." And then you're like, "Oh, while he's in Titans, I understand now. Like these are the things that are happening." So your editors will come to you and they're gonna talk to you about it, and they're gonna say like, "What's up with this?" And so that was a situation where they were like, "They want to use Gorilla Grodd. What do you think?" And I was like, "No, please don't touch Gorilla Grodd." But I should have said, "Don't touch Reverse Flash either." But I mean, you definitely share these characters. I had this conversation with Bendis maybe 2 years ago. We were talking about some of this stuff, and it's like you have to kind of be zen about it because not only do you not own these characters, you it's like part of the game. It's like if you're working on a character that is a major franchise character, of course they're going to appear in other people's books. Of course there are going to be other things, and you have to be able to kind of work with those people and talk to them about things. And but I'm also like I'm so obsessed with continuity and the idea of the universe that I'll try to make it all work. Like I think I'm one of the only books that made it all work over the last 4 years because I mentioned the fact that like Jess, Cruz, and Barry were flirting in Justice League. I mentioned that in the book. I mentioned Leviathan. Metal, like everything that's happened. I even try to reference stuff from just anything and stuff. Obviously I had to reference things from Heroes in Crisis. I always tried to reflect anything that was happening in the universe in the book in some form or another, even if I just mentioned it. There's an issue. It's during that stuff. It's during the death of the Speed Force stuff. And and Barry goes to Argus and is like, "Oh, Argus was destroyed, so we have to go to this warehouse instead." And it's like that's just a reference to what was going on in Leviathan. I just always try to make sure I reference everything that was going on in the universe in some form or another, just to kind of keep it together. Sometimes they would drive me crazy with things, but that would make it work. Like one time, Bendis used Copperhead and Superman just like randomly, and I was like, "What the heck?" But then I made it work.
Yeah,
well,
we
I was gonna say the Year of the Villain stuff must have been so hard to work with, just because I feel like as a reader, like between for example, Batman, Detective, and Justice League, I was like, I have no idea which Batman is taking place first, and I'm a continuity, like I love continuity, so
do I.
I'm like I have no idea what's happening, and then randomly like the Doom symbol appeared in the sky in tech, and I'm like, okay, that explains that, and I'm like, where did Alfred's death play into all of this, and I'm like, I'm very lost.
There was a lot of conversations about how that was going to work, and I probably shouldn't talk about it. But, Batman and Superman had the same problem because it was like we had the death in the sky happen in Batman and Superman, the Doom symbol in the sky, at the same time as, it was in Flash, and it was in Detective, and it was in Batman, but it was also in Justice League. It's an interesting problem. I think the thing I always kind of wrote it as was just that, and you guys know this, these are fans, and you guys read the DC Universe, but it's like, the universe is broken, and it's like all the stuff between Manhattan and Perpetua and the Batman Who Laughs, all those things. That's why anytime Barry is in the time stream, he's always like, this is a mess. Like, anytime he's running, anytime he's running through time, he always looks around and is like, this is a disaster. So that is me saying, like, yes, I recognize, this stuff is out of order. To that end, I mean, I would say read Death Metal because, Scott definitely on a metal level talks about that stuff in Death Metal. And I have to be careful because only issue 1 Death Metal is out, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Issue 2 is actually next week. So.
Oh, is it really next week?
Yeah.
Cool. That's a fun one. There's some cool moments in there for if you're a Flash fan in issue 2. There's a couple of cool moments.
Well, with death metal, we were talking about after the first issue, we kind of came to the realization that this could be Scott's Secret Wars, like how Hickman did for Marvel, how it was built up from his Fantastic Four run. For Scott, it was his Batman run, and for about a decade, he was able to write through different books, but keep that kind of one overarching story, and now it leads to a big event, which was for Hickman, it was Secret Wars, which was like this epic, amazing event, and for Scott, at least the first issue, epic, amazing event. So
for death metal, yeah,
yeah. So we're excited.
Death metal gets even crazier, man. I mean, because you have the first 3 issues, and you have Legends of Legends of the Dark Knight that comes out the week after issue 2, right?
Oh, okay.
Or something like that. I think it's before 3. It's right before 3, and then after 3 you have like the guidebook, and then you have the 3 one-shots with like Trinity Crisis and Speed Metal, and then Multiverses End, and then there's more stuff coming. You know, I know Scott's like teased a bunch of stuff. But yeah, that story gets really big, and yeah, it definitely includes a lot of the stuff we've been talking about and building. I mean, it is crazy to think about like the story of metal. You know, yeah, Scott seeded it in Batman, and then when he was done with Batman, him, James, and I, we had lunch in San Diego Comic-Con, like the Saturday, and we sat at this restaurant. We were just like talking about metal, and that was back in 2016. We were talking about what metal was going to be, and this crazy big story, and how big it was going to get, and how metal would be like this piece of it leading into death metal. And then you get to 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago now, and we were in Phoenix talking about where we were then, right? Like where the story was, and Justice League hadn't even come out yet. And we were just like, okay, here are these pieces of this big puzzle. Which characters do we want to use? Which stuff can we do? Like, because then we were past the metal part, and now we're getting into the Justice League part, and we were talking about Batman, Superman, which is also bonkers when you think about it. It's like that was in April or May of 2018, and Batman, Superman didn't even come out until August 2019. But we just knew, like, so we had this huge plan that we've been building this entire time, and yeah, you guys are getting to see sort of all that come together, and I think it'll surprise you in places how it does come together. It'll be like, oh, this thing referenced from years ago will somehow play a part again.
Okay, cool.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
What's it been like working with Scott? Because obviously for death metal, you've had to kind of work with him. Also, Speed Metal. How many issues is it?
Speed Metal is only 1 issue long. It's just 38 pages, all drawn by Eddie Burrows. It is.
Eddie's great, by the way. He's fantastic.
Oh, he's killing it. Like, it is. I don't know. I feel like he should definitely draw a Flash book at some point, because he gets the motion really, really well, and like he gets the characters well. And I mean, it's a lot of action in that one. It's a lot of action. It's like half action and then half really emotional stuff. But still very fun. I think it's a really fun issue. There's still high stakes, but it's still really fun. Working with Scott and James, I mean, I just talk to those guys every day. That's basically what it comes down to. I mean, we just talk all the time, and it's a lot of chat, a lot of phone. Now it's a little different, because it used to be that, like, every 6 months or so, like, I would probably fly out to New York and stay at Scott's house, and we would like figure stuff out. We're obviously not doing that right now.
Yeah.
It'll be a while. But the last time we did that, I think, was when was that? I think it was December or November we did that, and we figured out a bunch of stuff then. But yeah, working with him was great. It's just a lot of like figuring ideas out and throwing stuff at the wall, and then like testing ourselves and really pushing everything and being like, how can we make this better? How can we do this, bigger, but having a lot of conversations about the emotional parts of it, and then talking a lot about the characters, and then what we want to see from those characters, and what we want to, for lack of a better phrase, I'm going to say fix. But things we want to do that, we, as fans of these characters, we want to do. And, we do listen to people when they talk about this stuff. I mean, we're not always as engaging with it or as responsive to it, but we do listen. And so, we definitely want to make something that people are happy with and look at and go along for the ride with us. I mean, I think it's one of the things kind of hard at conventions is people will come to me and they're concerned about something or they're worried about something. And it's weird, right? Because it's like, if you're talking about like, this is a bad example, but I'm going to use it. It's like, if you're talking about like a 4 or 5 year story that someone is building, and you're only 1 or 2 years into it, it's almost like if you're watching a movie and you're 20 minutes in and you're getting to the end of the first act, beginning of the second act, and like bad things happen, and everyone's worried about those things, and you gotta finish the movie, you know, you gotta finish the movie. And so it's been hard sometimes talking to people and just being like, I know we're on a roller coaster ride, and I know sometimes it gets scary and there's ups and downs, but you gotta trust me that some of these things are going to pay off, or they're going to get to a place that's better. But you gotta kind of put those characters through hell a little bit. I had this conversation with somebody else, I don't know who it was, but we were talking about Batman and Superman a lot. And I have this like theory that, you know, if it's broad daylight outside, it's a sunny day outside, and I take a flashlight outside, you're not even going to really know that flashlight's on, right? But if you go into pitch black in the dark, and you turn that flashlight on, it shines brighter, right? You can actually see the light. And I think that sometimes our characters, you know, for you to be able to see how bright some of our characters shine, you got to put them in the darkness sometimes. And that's how you can see. That's how you test them. You can test how bright they are, and you test their resiliency as characters and how great they are. You got to put them in the dark sometimes to get there. But yeah,
that definitely sounds like what Tom King was talking about post Heroes in Crisis. Which, by the way, the last time we spoke was like about a week before Heroes in Crisis dropped. So right, we just came off of Flash 51, and we're like, yeah, Wally West's story is far from over. And then Heroes in Crisis 1 came out, and both Hunter and I were like,
yeah, it's right. For me, it's weird, right? Because you're like, I know he's not, like, for me, it was like, I know he's not dead, and Heroes in Crisis is 7 issues long, and that's a long, or no, I'm sorry. Originally it was 7, and it became 9.
Yep.
Yeah.
And oh my God, this is going to be like the longest 9 months of my life. Because I knew Wally wasn't dead, and it was just hard. It was definitely a thing, and, you know, I definitely have, I probably shouldn't say this, but I've definitely spent my time yelling at Tom on the phone.
Wow. Okay.
As Wally fans, we thank you. But yeah, it was crazy. Like literally a week before it came out, we spoke to you, and I was like I remember exiting the interview with you, and Hunter and I spoke for a little bit on the phone after that, and I was like, wow, that was really cool. He made me feel really optimistic about Wally. Like Heroes of Crisis is going to turn out okay. And like I should have known, you know, when a Flash and a Crisis mix, you know, I'm in danger. But
oh my God. I know when Dan and Tom said that, I was so
oh my God, I posted that quote maybe 100 times because I was like,
when they said that, I was
Crisis without a dead Flash. I was like, no, Dan, please, no.
Dan, you know, I don't go too much into this, but basically Dan just loves theater. That's what I'll say.
I've really come to like Dan a lot. When he was on Instagram, or he's still on Instagram, he was very interactive with us. Like I commented on one of his posts, and he replied to me like, "Oh, your name wouldn't happen to be Wally." Like it was hilarious. He was always such a jokester. So I'm like, I gained like such a new level of respect for Dan, and like I realized what every one of you writers and editors were talking about, like how, you know, Dan was like, you know, one of the best guys in DC Comics, and like how everyone had a great relationship with him. Just from, you know, interacting with him in a comment section, I could clearly see, you know, how funny and how awesome he was.
He was really funny. He liked to push buttons. He definitely
you could tell that.
I mean, it's interesting with some of that stuff because it's like, and this isn't a Dan thing. This is a DC Comics thing. But it's like, you know, I've been reading stuff as a little kid, and I started going to conventions a long time ago, right? And it's like, I remember being there, like being at conventions in the panel rooms pre-Dan, and then, you know, being there throughout the 2000s, and just being like a fan, you know, in the audience and watching these panels, and the excitement, the energy that was there. But they 100% like to instigate us, like,
oh yeah,
you know, and I think that's a comics thing in general. I think Marvel and DC love to like get the fans riled up a little bit because it shows you care. I mean, that's the thing, is that like. And I think about this too sometimes, that it's like one of the reasons why I was on The Flash for so long, not only because it sold, like that was a part of it, I'm not going to deny it. The fact that it was selling, like that was definitely, you know, they were very happy. The fact that it stayed steady up and, you know, for a long time, it was pretty steady. So they were very happy about that. But then it was also just like the fact that people talked about the book and talked about the character and what was happening in the book, that meant a lot to Dan. It wasn't like they were talking about all these other things. They were talking about things that were happening in the book. And I think that's what, you know, made DC Comics happy with it. But yeah, it's weird to be done with it now, dude. It's so crazy. I had to lie for a long time because people would ask me like, when are you gonna leave? When are you gonna leave? And I always knew when. Like, I always knew. right?
Literally the day before you announced, somebody had messaged me and they're like, "Oh, how long do you think Williamson's going to go on the Flash?" And I remember replying like, "Oh, there's no stopping him. Like he's rolling right through 100. Like he's legacy numbers. He's going till 800." And then and literally the next day the article came out. I was like, "What?"
There was a part of me that when they did the legacy numbers, it was like, "Can I stay to 100? Can I do that? Do I have enough left?" And it's funny. It's not like I don't have any more Flash stories to tell or anything like that, but I feel like this story is over, and I feel like the story I wanted to tell here was over. And I don't know if I'd want to come back. Like, I know that's the funny thing is that people have these long runs on the Flash, and they always come back. Like Mark came back, and Jeff came back. I don't know. I mean, I would like to tell more stories with Wally, obviously, and I think there's other characters I kind of want to get into, like Bart and Jay. But I think I've definitely told like my Barry story. I feel like I've done what I want to do with Barry at this point. But yeah, man, we talked about it a bit, and it was funny because like back in, I think it was in November, December, we started having these conversations more and more about when I was leaving, and I think they didn't take me as serious when I was like, no, this is what I want to go. This is where I want to go. And even in, I would say like February or March, I sat down with one of the editors and they had a notebook and everything. They were ready to go. And they're like, well, we want to talk about what happens after Finish Line. And I was like, what? I'm like, oh, I'm done. I was like, that's it. And they were like, oh, really? Like, you really are done? I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I mean, that's the story. That's the story I want to tell with Barry. We're getting to do the ending that we wanted to do. And I don't want to jinx it. That was also a whole other part of it too, where I was like, I didn't want to have a situation where, I wanted to, because there was a moment before that where they were like, well, if you did stay past Finish Line, what would you do? And I was like, oh, I guess there's this one story I kind of want to do. And I started explaining it. And later on, they were like, yeah, you clearly, that would have felt like a filler arc. And why would you want to do like filler stuff at the end? Like, why would you?
Yeah, Finish Line is your grand finale.
Yeah, Finish Line is clearly, I mean, guys, I promise you, when you guys get to these issues, there's going to be like, this is clearly the end of the story. Like, there's nothing, that was the other thing, too, was that I was like, looking at these pages that Howard Porter was turning in, and I'm like, there's no way to top this. There's nothing else I can do, right? It's like, you get Finish Line, and you look at the stuff that Rafa and Christian and Scott Collins are doing, and then you look at the stuff that Howard Porter does in those two issues, and those two issues are crazy. And then you look at Speed Metal, and Speed Metal's just as crazy. Like, there's cool stuff that happens in Speed Metal. It really is a lot about the Flash family during this crazy story of Death Metal. It really felt like, no, this is it. I'm done. I can't top this at this time, and I don't want to just like keep it going. So I definitely was like, yeah, it's time to go. And so I told him, I was like, guys, I think this is clearly it. But yeah, I promise you, you guys get those issues Howard's going to do, you're just going to be like, what? What is this? What is this?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's pretty bonker. I think they're going to they're going to post, I think, a 2-page spread that Howard did that gives away some of it. Part of me was like, no, come on, let's keep some of that stuff a secret. And then I was like, oh, but there's so many things that are cool in that issue that I'm okay with spoiling a couple little things. They were funny, dude, because they were like, that promo we did that had the Flash family on one side and the Legion of Zoom on the other side.
Yeah.
They were like, do you want to keep this a secret? Like, do you want to not reveal that Max and Jesse are coming back? Do you want to not reveal that Bart and Jay are coming back? And I was like, no, man, let's do it. Like, let's get it out there and tell people this is what's coming, because I'm excited about it. I want to talk about it. It's rough how people ask me when Max is coming back, and I'm like, let me tell you, on the first day I had the job, I asked about Max and Bart. So, like, there was no way I was not going to have them in the book at the end. There was just no way I wouldn't be able to do that. I had to. Yeah, getting Bart back. Bart is so much fun to write, guys. Like, he is so much fun to write. He has some of my favorite parts in Finish Line.
We've said for a while that you'd be great for Young Justice.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Bendis is on it right now, but Bendis is also on so many books. But I feel like you've done really great. Like, I feel like where your Flash arc shine the most has been like the team stuff. Perfect Storm and Flashborn stuff. Like, when you have a lot of characters to work with, it really feels like you work good. And the way you've talked about Bart makes me want to just hear more about your Bart. And I'm currently rereading Impulse, and I'm having a great time with it. Like it's so much fun. So I'm like, damn, I really need like some really great Impulse moments. I'm like, I need Williamson to just take over on Young Justice because he could deliver me that.
That issue of Impulse where he starts the school fight by accident.
Oh, that's great.
One of the best comics ever written.
Like, yeah, it's the third issue of Impulse. It's like everything works. It fires on all cylinders. Like it all lines up, and at the end, it's just like he's walking by. Like, what did you do? I don't know.
Yeah, that issue is so good. It's so good. I was in the offices one time, and they were putting together the omnibus. I can't say.
I'm so sad they got canceled.
What's crazy is that there's a cover. I'm not sure if it's public or not. I can't say who did it, but somebody did the cover to the omnibus, and they had it in the office, and I was like, "Holy shit!" It's pretty awesome. There's a lot of people that work in the office that are huge, that are really big Flash fans, and it's been really great sometimes talking with them, especially the younger editors. They're all big Flash fans, and so it's interesting to have them like really appreciate some of this stuff. Like in issue 50, when Bart appeared, I remember, man, I was so like, because I had been told no on Bart before. And so I was always so concerned that, like, last minute they wouldn't let me use Bart. And the only reason why Bart was a surprise was because Young Justice was supposed to get announced, like, a month earlier than it did. Mm-hmm. And so the week that issue 50 came out was supposed to be the same week they were going to announce Young Justice. And so at the time I was like, well, people are going to know Young Justice is coming, and it was going to have Bart on it, so you would know Bart was coming back. But then you wouldn't know he was coming back in issue 50, so it would be a surprise. And then the announcement got pushed back so that was like a surprise that Bart came back at the end of the issue, and then he would, go be in Young Justice and everything. But yeah, I love writing that character. Max is fun to write. Justice is fun to write. There's a bunch of people that are in here that are fun. And obviously Eobard is a blast. Eobard is rough, dude, because he's such like a horrible person, but he loves like the Flash history, and he loves Barry. Like he really thinks Barry's like the greatest hero of all time, but hates him so much, Like
yeah, Barry, like a love-hate relationship. Yeah.
Well, he feels betrayed by him.
Yeah.
He felt like he met his idol, and his idol did not live up to his expectations. Which is a lot of what the story's about, I think, for me with Barry. It's like Barry's this person who, once he died, he became this martyr, who became this myth. Barry became this thing. And it's interesting because some of that's transferred to Wally, right? It's like Barry used to be this like paragon of like hope and this ideal of a superhero who also sacrificed themselves.
He becomes Saint Barry after his death, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then it's interesting how Wally has almost taken on some of those qualities. Like Barry's become the one that has a lack of confidence in himself, and then Barry's become the one that has like a little bit of a lack of confidence. Here, hold on one second. I gotta text. You guys are getting like insider stuff here. I have to text an editor and be like, just hold on a second, I'm on a podcast.
Oh, good.
Basically, yeah, we I had an editor. I'm working on something at DC, and they were like, we were talking about the art came in. It's not announced, and the art came in on the first issue, and they were like, "This art looks amazing." Have one note. What do you think? And I'm like, slow down. Let me do this podcast, and then I will look at it. I've already looked at the art. It's great. Very exciting. But there's like one note I have, and he has one note, and I want to make sure we don't like overload the artist. Yeah, man. Yeah.
It's funny, the last time we talked to you, Bart was just revealed, and you hinted that he was going to be in another book, which was Young Justice, but back then it wasn't announced yet. Did you have plans for Bart Allen before Young Justice was announced at all?
Yes, sort of. I mean, it's interesting when I think back to all the stuff that I was going to do in Flash I either didn't do or got rearranged. I originally wanted Barry to get trapped in the future for a little bit.
Oh, cool.
And he was going to get trapped in the future for a little bit, and then he would interact with Bart in that story. And that's where we were going to find out that Bart had been trapped in the future this whole time. It wasn't going to be the stuff that Bendis eventually did. And so there was that. But then once Bendis had Bart and they were going into the multiverse, And because that book's monthly, not double ship, it really made it so I couldn't really use him as often. And so once they came back, I just communicated with Bendis as much as I could, and texted with him and talked with him about what I was planning. And he sends me scripts and sends me PDFs of Young Justice, and we talk about Bart a little bit. And I'm just glad I get to use him for this story. He has some of my favorite moments. I think he has I think every issue he has something really cool in every issue. But yeah, obviously I like Bart a lot, and I don't know, I like writing all of them. I like writing all of them. I don't think there's any character. It's funny, like Murmur was a character I wanted to write really early on. He was the only Wally. This is the thing about Murmur that's interesting, right? Like Murmur is a Wally villain, but if you go
connected to Barry.
It's connected to Barry. You go back to Iron Heights, and it's like Barry was the one that caught him and arrested him, right?
Yeah.
So I always wanted to do a Murmur story, I had a whole arc I wanted to do about Murmur, and it was supposed to be something I was going to do really early on, and it just never worked out, like timing wise. So I never got to write him. He'd always be like in the background and stuff. So that's why in the issue that came out this week, there's that part where Barry's running around and he's like, "Oh, I don't have time to stop one crime," and that's why he punches Murmur, because I was like, I'm just going to have Murmur in this story just once.
Oh, that would have been cool to get a Murmur story. I mean, Murmur's, I feel like, kind of like an underutilized rogue. I feel like in the Jeff story, he's very interesting, and I always wanted to see more, so that would have been pretty cool to see.
There's another villain that I wanted to write that I didn't, and he is seen in my run twice, and then I know, this is probably too much spoiler, I think you'll figure it out, but he will be in the book after me. Like, he's a villain they're going to use after me. I actually told them, I was like, guys, the only villain that I haven't used is this one, and you guys should use him after me for the people after me. So you'll figure it out.
Well, so funny you should bring up kind of the writer after you. I mean, obviously it hasn't been announced to us yet. I'm assuming on the solicitations that are October solicitations, it'll be announced, because that's, the last solicitations had your book. So I'm expecting it to actually come out probably like in a week or so. Solicitations are probably soon.
No. I think it's pretty soon, but I can't talk about it.
Of course. But what kind of advice have you given to this writer? Have you I'm assuming that you've talked. So have you given advice?
I talked about a lot of stuff I think that they should be doing, and I talked to the editors a lot about stuff. I think all the advice that I gave, you won't really start seeing until next year. I don't want to say the advice I gave, because I think it will turn into spoilers. That's fair. I think like 6 months from now, I could be like, these are the things I said, and these are the things I would recommend anyone working on the Flash not do, things I would say they should do. I think one of the biggest advice I would have for anybody working on the Flash past me, is that you have to love the character, obviously, but I think you need to be able to find your own way with it. Like, my run is definitely in love with Jeff and Mark, because I'm a huge Jeff and Mark fan. And you can see it. And it's funny, because I think if you go back, and I remember this, when Flash 225 came out, I remember I was working at a comic book store when it came out, and it was the first box I opened. It was like 6 a.m. on a Wednesday, before they used to get comics on Tuesday. They used to get it on Wednesday morning. Cut that box open, opened it up, and there was 225, and I was like, I'm just going to read it right now. Like, I'm not going to worry about anything, I'm going to read it right now. Went in the back, sat there, it was freezing cold, and I read 225, and I remember reading 225 and just being like, man, that is like a sequel to everything that Mark was doing, and it's a sequel to the stuff even before that. It ties back. Not only does it tie back to the stuff Mark did, but it ties back to the stuff that Carrie Bates did. Like, it connects, and just really feeling like I had read this epic that was a sequel to another epic. And so with my stuff, that's something that was on my mind a lot, of like continuing that beat. That would be my advice to the next person, is definitely take a look at that stuff, but then at the same time, like, try to find your own way, and try to find your path. There's a bunch of other things I said, but I don't want to tell you guys, because I think it's too spoilery.
Yeah, we'll have to get it on the next interview, I guess.
yeah. It'll be interesting. You guys will be. I think everyone's gonna be surprised. So
I'm excited.
Cool.
So now we're looking back at your run in hindsight, right? Obviously you finished writing it. Last time we talked to you was right after Flash War, and you had said that Flash War was your favorite thing to work on, and it was the biggest thing you ever worked on. Has Finish Line or any other arc topped that for you?
I was really happy with year one. I think that year one was, I had this goal of what I wanted to do with it and do something a little different than what I had done before. I didn't want to copy what, Mark had done with Born Again. And, there was like a one-shot Flash year one that was done in the 80s. It was like this weird little mini comic. And I didn't want to just do that over. I wanted to do something a little different with it and involve the turtle. So I'm proud of that book. Like, I remember when I pitched year one, it was like right after issue one come out. And I never thought they would let me do it. And I got to do it with Howard. And I think that's a big part of it is I got to do it with Howard. So I'm really proud of that. I feel like Flash War might be my favorite. Let's see what Finish Line looks like when it's all done. There's a lot of stuff in Finish Line that I like, but Finish Line's interesting because Finish Line is definitely a story about Barry. It's a story about Eobard, but it's the last 15 minutes of a movie, right? It's the end, and it's a lot of fan service stuff, which I'm not afraid to tell you guys.
I'm here for it.
So it's like it's a different beast than I think Flash War was. Where Flash War was also a little bit more of this is what I wanted to be doing the entire time, because it's like I really believe that The Flash is a book that should be about the Flash family, and it really should be about those characters. And I think it's like, Barry is at his best when he is like bouncing off somebody, right?
That's correct. 100% correct.
Yeah. And I think Iris fills that role, and Eobard definitely fills that role as well. I think Eobard and Captain Cold too fill that role. But you got to have the Flash family in there. And it was always something I wasn't able to do as often as I wanted. And so it was like, I remember talking to them about Flash War, and issue 27 had just come out. It was the week before issue 27 came out. Talking to them about Flash War and being like, this is what I want to do. And them saying, well, if you're going to do Flash War, because I talked to editorial about it, but actually pitching it's like a whole other story, right?
Yeah.
But being like, well, I want to do Flash War, and then being like, well, for you to do Flash War, that means you have to have Wally in the book before Flash War. And them saying that like it was like a challenge or something, and me being like, yes, I must have Wally in the book. But, being able to have Wally come into the book with Perfect Storm, I really do think once you get around to that time period, that's where I feel like the book became more and more what I wanted it to be. Right, so it's like get into that stuff, and it's weird to say that because Perfect Storm starts at issue 39, but it's like there's a lot of stuff before that I think helped me get the pieces on the table for the characters emotionally for Flash War to happen, like to finally get into that stuff. And so, a lot of stuff that I'm really excited about. I really like Flash War a lot. We'll see what Finish Line. Finish Line's fun. I guess that's part of it. There are a lot of really fun moments in Finish Line. So.
Yeah.
I mean, something about your Flash run, like now looking back at it, which is kind of weird to like look back at it now, because I can remember in 2016 like getting the first issue, and like a whole new Flash run ahead of me, right? So like looking back at it now, it's very weird to me, and having every issue too, like I see the whole stack, and I'm like, this is bonkers to me. But to steal your word, bonkers. But
I've been writing it every 2 weeks for 4+ years.
Yeah, so it's been like part of my routine, and. I feel like this is the Flash run that kind of like brought the life back into it for me, at least. I mean, there's no diss to New 52. I think New 52, I love Manople's stuff. I thought they really did some creative stuff. But to me, the heart of the Flash is the Flash family. And it was something that, we really hadn't seen since 2010, with Jeff's short run. We got like little hints of what was going to be coming. And then, of course, Flashpoint kind of took that away from us. So it's like your run in the beginning, Barry's alone, he's nervous about life, and he doesn't want to have people close to him because he's scared of what will happen. And now going to the end of his run, at least, obviously we haven't read Finish Line, but what I think is going to happen is having his family, the Flash family around him, whether, it's Avery and Wallace and Iris and all of them, he's really become such a better person because of his family, and he realizes that a family is not a weakness to him, it's actually a strength. So your to make a long point even longer, your run is like, for me, what reignited my love for just Flash comics.
Oh, thanks, man. That means a lot. Yeah, that was definitely the intent at the beginning, was that Barry needed to accept that he needed to ask for help. And that was part of it. He needed to ask for help, and that's where Godspeed and Kid Flash come into play. And I mean, that's why you go from him having he's the only speedster, and I say that in quotations, but he's the only speedster to suddenly there's a ton with the Speed Force Storm. That was part of the idea of that, was to kind of build around those things. But yeah, I definitely was trying to rebuild this. There's a line in the first part of Finish Line where Eobard talks about that, about how the Flash family was more Wally's thing. And that he says this because he's a villain. So when I say these things, I'm saying him as Eobard, the villain.
Yeah.
Him saying then being like, well, that's what Barry needs to realize, is that the best Flash is the Flash that runs alone. The best Flash, like maybe the best Flash, is the one that doesn't have a family. And of course, that's because he's the villain saying.
He's got to play devil's advocate.
You know, yeah, he's saying those things because I'm trying to show that no, it's the flip of that. He needs to have those characters. He needs to have that family. He's at his best when he's running with Wally and Wallace and Jay and everybody. Like, you know, that is when he's at his best, and having those people around him, and you know, he does it for them. I think he does a lot of what he does for them, and he needs to see that too. So there's definitely a lot of big emotional stuff coming up.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Pretty crazy. It is weird. I'm curious about some stuff. Like, there's little beats. There's like a 2-page sequence in the next issue that comes out. Is it the next one? No, it's like 2 from now. That is like gonna be one of those things where I think like you guys will get it. People who don't really read as much Flash as like maybe we have may not get it as much, but there's all kinds of stuff in there. I try to make it so it's a solid story for someone who's never read it. But at the same time, it's like if you've been reading this book for the 100 issues, plus you've been reading Flash and you've been reading Jeff and Mark's run, even going back further, there's something for you in there. Like I really try to fill that stuff in.
Yeah, no.
What other questions do you have? 'Cause I have to go in a few minutes. So what other questions do you got?
Okay, we'll maybe move to Batman Superman now. So
Sure.
you said before that you kind of got your job at DC doing that one issue with Robin and Supergirl originally, and now you're writing Batman Superman. What's it like coming full circle in that way?
Oh man, it's bonkers. Use my word again. I went to John and was like, I really want to do this book, and this is what I want to do with it. And he was like, not yet, not yet. We kind of waited, and we're able to make it pull it together. It's pretty crazy, dude. There's days where I'm like, I can't believe I get to write Batman and Superman and the Flash at the same time.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's interesting about September, is that September has the last 2 issues of Flash. It also has a bit issue of Batman and Superman, but then it also has Justice League, because I'm writing the Justice League issues of
Oh, right.
So it's like this weird moment where there's like one moment out of my life where I'm writing Flash, Batman, Superman, and the Justice League. It's such a strange thing of this, you know, just this kid who just really loves DC Comics and has always loved DC Comics to suddenly come to this moment where I'm writing all this stuff is definitely, I really appreciate it. You know, I'm very thankful for it, and definitely think it's awesome. It's just, it blows my mind sometimes that I'm able to do the stuff that I'm able to do. But yeah, working on Batman and Superman, I got to work with David Marquez, who's a friend of mine.
Oh, he's so amazing. I was so glad you guys got him at DC.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Nick Darrington is my friend as well, and getting him on it, you know, I went and had dinner with him and pitched him the story we were going to do, and he loves Bottle City of Candor, so we got to do that. He actually built like a mini Bottle City of Candor as a model for himself.
Well, that's cool.
And then Clayton Henry, I have actually been following ever since he did Wu-Tang. He did a Wu-Tang comic book like a long time ago. So I've always like had an eye on him. He did some X-Men stuff. He's done a lot of different things over the years. And so when his name came up, I was like, yes, let's do that. And he's great. I love Clayton a lot. So he did 3 issues, and then a new person, I'm not sure if this is announced yet. I think it is. A new artist that's been around for a little bit named Max Raynor is doing it, and we're doing an arc with Brainiac. And yeah, it's been really great writing them. I don't know. I really like working with those. Part of the greatness of it is just getting to work with some of these artists. But yeah, just getting to write Batman and Superman, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, get to write like 2 of the greatest superheroes of all time, and just have them bounce off each other and show off how they're different but they're the same. And
yeah.
So what's it like what's it been like writing comics during COVID? Because I mean, obviously you guys, you know, can work from home, and I remember last time you told us you like to take walks and stuff. So how has your routine kind of changed?
I still take the walks. I just wear a mask obviously when I do it. I still take the walks. I don't take them as often. I'm pretty careful about when I take them and where I go. But I mean, yeah, dude, I have already been living in isolation because we had the baby. So it's like I was never leaving anyway. So it's like you take that. I have 2 kids. It's just like, yeah, I was never leaving the house anyway. So my life didn't get that different with that. There's obviously a lot of really big changes, but just getting the work done. And also, I'm very thankful that, like, you know, DC, we never stopped working. So it's like to have that distraction, to have that work, to have that part of the routine. I think it helped a lot. It was definitely, I'm really thankful that DC kept us working through all this stuff, because it was like, even though things are crazy in the world, I've been able to put my head down and be like, all right, well, no matter what happens, I got to write this issue of Flash, or this issue of Batman, Superman, or this other stuff that hasn't been announced yet. I got to write. So it's really great.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to crazy in the world, but
it is.
Oh,
yeah. It's been tough. I understand we have to go pretty soon, so we'll just ask one more question here.
Sure.
Along with Batman, Superman, and Speed Metal, what can we expect from you in the future?
We can read Justice League. It's called Doom Metal. I'm gonna start showing art off from it next week. But yeah, it's with Zemenico is drawing 2 issues of it. Some of the stuff isn't announced yet, but Zemenico's drawing 2 issues of it. Another artist is coming on and drawing an issue or 2, and then Zemenico's coming back for the ending. I'm still working on Death Metal stuff. I have a bunch of stuff I'm working on for DC that hasn't been announced yet that I'm really excited about. I still write Nailbiter. That's coming out now. It's called Nailbiter Returns because it's a sequel. And then I'm wrapping up Birthright soon. But yeah, with DC stuff, I mean, there's a lot of really cool things coming up. It's just we haven't announced them yet, and so I can't talk about them. I'm antsy too, though. There's a part of me that's like, I'm ready to go on some things. I'm going to be doing a lot of like little short things for them for a minute. You know, there's a couple of little like short stories, some anthologies I did, and then I've done a couple little like, you know, 1-part, 2-part things. But then by the time you get to next year, that's when you'll start seeing a lot more stuff from me that's more series and things like that. It's too early to talk about.
For sure. Yeah. I understand. We'll have you on again someday, and maybe you can talk about them.
Yeah, we'll talk when. I promise you, we will talk when the last issue comes out.
Awesome.
Yes, we will definitely talk. Thank you so much for appearing on our special 100, and thanks for such, you know, a short notice invite. But thank you for accommodating. It's of course a pleasure to have you on. You gave us great answers, and I can't wait for our followers to hear it. If you want to keep up with Josh, he's on Twitter and kind of on Instagram. We'll try to get more into it.
I will figure it out. I will figure it out soon.
But thank you so much, Josh. And yeah, that's it for Hero Story. So.
Great. Thanks. All right, thanks, guys. I'm getting the look. I have to go now.
Yeah, okay, Josh, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Yep, have a great night.
See you later.
Bye.
All right, so that was an interview with Joshua Williamson. It was a lot of fun to record. I was a little nervous. I'll admit it. I don't know about you. I was a little nervous.
A little bit at first, yeah. I mean, when you first started the call, I mean, we started talking to Joshua before we even started recording here. So when we first got into that call, he actually just started showing off his collection again, which is what he did last time.
Yeah. Last time he was like showing off like his Flash 123. This time he was showing off like all his books and statues, and I was like, I kind of just want to take a tour of his house.
It's awesome. It's so cool. It's so interesting how many things he owns. Like he lives in a comic shop basically in his home. It's so cool. But yeah.
It was a lot of fun. So if you are new to A Hero Story because of this episode, welcome. You can find us on Instagram at A Hero Story, which is our kind of indie comic page, where we'll be posting stuff about our comics along with the podcast, of course. You can find us individually on Instagram. I'm at History of the Flash. He's at Comic Book Hunter. And so thanks for listening. If you are listening on iTunes, we really appreciate a 5-star review. It helps with the rankings, and it's just really cool. If you're listening anywhere else, we appreciate a follow / subscribe. We talk about comics every week. Yes, especially if you're on YouTube right now. We are new there, so yeah, maybe give us a check us out a little bit. Give us some likes and stuff. Check us out on Instagram and all that. And for Hero Story, I'm JD.
I'm Hunter, and thanks for being a hero.
And remember, every second is a gift. Goodbye.
What?